Hello beauties and welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for tuning in. Today is a little bit different of a topic. It's going to be a little bit more hitting close to my personal struggles and how it has helped me, draw closer to God. So part of this topic is in tandem with James chapter 4 and the thorn in the flesh that Paul describes in one of his letters that he wrote to one of the churches. So, how has losing part of my health helped me draw closer to God? You see, I wanted to make this topic because it is a bit more personal, as I mentioned before, but also because we tend to live life thinking or walk around thinking that everyone else has it easier or everyone else has it better, or some lines of that matter. I made a video not too long ago in regards to being careful about comparing ourselves horizontally and how we should compare ourselves vertically. So we should not be comparing ourselves in essence, from one to another, because the phrase "the grass may look green on the other side" kind of holds truth. Now, there's some controversy in regards to that phrase in general. The main gist of "the grass may look greener or isn't always greener on the other side" is about being content, not complacent, but content. Being content in everything that you have, as Paul has said, he knows how to abound in suffer need. He knows how to be content in all things. And that's the mindset we need to have when it comes to that phrase, "the grass isn't always greener on the other side." Because sometimes we may think that someone else has it easier, when in reality that's just a little tidbit of what you see. Or they have gone through so much that we don't even know about, and then they finally reach that pinnacle of success, and that's just a tiny bit of their life that we see. So everyone's life is always this big, but we only see the width of my hand. We never see the whole actual thing of someone's life. So that's the problem. Now, again, in essence, can there be better opportunities elsewhere in other aspects of things? Of course, there could be better opportunities in other aspects. So yes, going back to what I said, the phrase "the grass isn't always green on the other side" holds some weight, but not meant to make you complacent. All right, side tangent over. Anyhow, so we oftentimes may take things for granted. Now, I say this with a grain of salt. Again, you cannot know, or you can't read my mind, I can't read your mind, I can't read anyone's mind. I think that would probably be a little scary if we were able to do so. But when they say that, we don't always know, or we take things for granted, rather, in regards to what we can do, there's a lot of things that we may think is mundane or are mundane tasks. And I've actually mentioned this in one of my very early videos, I think short or video, I don't remember. But sometimes we may take things that are mundane tasks, everyday tasks, and just take those for granted as well. You may think, well, how the heck am I taking it for granted? Again, I'm not saying everyone does it. We may tend to do so in human nature. How may we take it for granted? Well, glad you asked. So, one thing for sure, I'm going to talk about myself, okay? Because I know me and how I have reacted before. I cannot speak for everybody, so maybe this kind of relates to you. Maybe it may make sense to you that you've heard someone else say this. Who knows? I'm going to relate it to me personally because I know me, I know how I think, and so it's easier to talk about what I have thought of versus what I think others have thought of. Let's do that. All right, so for example, I have taken breathing for granted. You may say, well, we all breathe, right? Well, breathing should not be laborious. Breathing should be effortless. I mean, of course, if you're doing very vigorous activity, then breathing may become a little bit laborious. But breathing shouldn't be laborious to the point where you need mechanical means or medical means to help breathe or help regain your breath. It's as if you're suffocating or drowning. And I say me personally, again, I can't speak for everybody, but myself personally, have taken breathing for granted, or less breathing for granted. And I say this because I have asthma, and it is moderate to severe. Thank the good Lord, I am not needing steroids as of yet. Praying I don't have to. But for a lot of people who suffer some type of COPD, some type of obstructive disorder when it comes to the lungs, so that's what COPD is, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease or disorder. And so that's kind of an umbrella of a lot of different breathing complications. So asthma kind of falls into that umbrella. So in essence, when it comes to breathing with asthma, you have a constant chronic production of mucus, and you probably have heard me sniffle or clear my throat one too many times in some of my videos, and I do apologize about that, but that's one caveat of having beautiful asthma and having constant mucus being lined in almost all parts of your airways. How does that happen? Well, that's basically inflammation, horrible case of inflammation. And usually if you have asthma, you have other things like allergies, eczema, and other types of or inflammatory diseases or autoimmune diseases. So when I say asthma as an example, I love to partake of arts, and so we'll deep dive into this history of this girl right here. But I love to do martial arts. I've been practicing and teaching for a long time. I don't want to give away how long because I may give away my age, will it? I've been doing that for a very long time, and so I love it. One thing is though, when you get higher in rank, your forms get a little bit long, and so they get very long. Martial arts, and it takes a lot out of me to go through the forms, whereas especially when I'm competing. Whereas other people who are competing with their forms, it's not as laborious for them. It can get so bad, depending on the season, because of course with asthma, like I mentioned, I have allergies and eczema. But depending on the season, it can flare up to the point where I don't get an asthma attack, but the inflammation is so bad that it comes very close to an attack. And for those of you who don't know what an asthma attack feels like, if you've ever have had, not to knock on people who've had asthma attacks, because trust me, give me a second. If you ever had like a panic attack or really, really bad panic attack, and then you just couldn't breathe and you hyperventilate into a bag, that's similar at the same time. That's the only thing I can think of that's very close to what an asthma attack may feel like. The thing is though, is that you are trying to breathe, but your airways are closing up and constricting because there's just sticky material, mucus, that is preventing the airways to keep open and have a nice pathway of air to go through. So instead of it being like this, with asthma it becomes like this. And now all the air that's trying to come through, that's supposed to come through normally like this, it's only coming through like this. And then, especially with your heart rate increasing, your heart's pumping a lot faster or harder to try to pump blood in and out, get that exchange of oxygen through the blood. It's not really working, asthma attack can occur, and then it just sucks. So typically with asthma attacks, you need what's called a butyl sulfate or an emergency inhaler. Sometimes it may help. If it's too severe, then yes, you'd have to go on a respirator, go to the ER, and then get some respiratory assistance that way. But typically that would help clear it out, and then you start coughing like you're super sick with whooping cough. Now, I say all that to say this. I have taken breathing for granted because now, for myself at least, thank the good Lord, and I'm very grateful that I'm not to the point where I have to be on steroids. I was at one point where I did have to take some steroids a little bit, but thank the good Lord, I'm not where I have to chronically take steroids to keep my asthma under control. And I do have a medication I take to keep it at bay, and it really does help, but it's not steroids. Thank the good Lord again. I have seen other people who can do exercises that I do, and they are not out of breath as much. It doesn't matter what their health meter is, if they're as healthy as I am, or healthier or less healthy, it doesn't matter. It's just I've seen a lot of people who are able to do exercises, or for example martial arts forms, or even sparring, and it doesn't take as much out of them. Now they may be out of shape, but they're still able to continue through and it doesn't affect them as much. And others who have moderate to severe asthma, it takes a lot. It takes a lot to get back into the rhythm of things. And that's what I'm trying to say. That little example. The other example I want to mention is in regards to eczema. Like I said, asthma, allergies, eczema all come together. Now, I will put a video up of how my hands, my skin, my face, everything has looked like when it's flared up pretty bad versus how it is kind of calming down and things of that nature. I don't take topical steroids. They don't work for me, and I just don't want to. But again, like I said, you have a medicine that helps a lot with controlling and keeping it. When it comes to eczema, for example, I have taken it for granted also, because when it flares up really bad, simple things like washing your hands hurts. Simple things like getting up and just sweating a little bit if it's too hot or humid hurts. If it's too warm outside, even regardless if you're sweating or not, if the sun is just too intense, it hurts. So I have taken for granted, because I was at a point in my life where the diseases and illnesses I have now weren't as bad, and I was able to do things like a normal person would and not have to worry about it like I have to worry about it now. And so I say that because, again, for myself, I have taken it for granted to the point of, well, I never knew, one, that this was a thing, that there are people out there who it's difficult for them just to get up and go outside, or it's difficult for them just to breathe, or it's difficult for them to do X, Y, Z. You see, when we just get into a rut of mundane tasks, we forget that we forget the feasibility of life that we may have at times. Granted, yes, we may have it difficult, there may be some challenges you're going through, but that's okay. That's okay. That's why I mentioned before, how has this helped me draw closer to God? Well, it's humbled me a lot. Just like Paul says, for the thorn in his flesh, I believe it's in the Corinthian letters he wrote. I will put it here on the screen, but just like the thorn in the flesh, to help keep him humble and not conceit it was there after he asked God, and God said, what did he say? My grace is sufficient for you. And that hits. Because when it comes to suffering any kind of ailments, and even if you don't suffer, the main point is, when it comes to your health, thank God. I read recently, someone asked, well, what would you have today if you thanked God yesterday? So for example, if you did not thank God for anything yesterday, you would have nothing today. Imagine, if you lived life like that. If you lived life to where everything you were thankful for yesterday, you prayed and you said thank you to God, you had today, how would your life change, and how would your gratitude change towards God? That's the thing I'm trying to instill. I know it's a tiny bit rushed of a video in essence, but wanted to bring the main point across and to just let you know God is good all the time, and all the time God is good.